Hey, what is up, everybody? I am here to give you my Tom Sawyer Read Aloud series, Chapter 15. Can't believe I'm on 15 chapters. I'm still not even halfway done with this book. I'm like about quarter of the way done, um, maybe not even. Um, so I'm gonna review the next. I'm gonna be doing the next Read Aloud series for this chapter. Um, I redo it, but you get nothing but real videos here. All the mess ups they stay in there. But anyhow. Um, if you want to check out my playlist for chapters 1 through 14, make sure you click on the playlist up there. And if I remember to post it there, it's at the point where I'm just so used to it. I may just post it down in the description box if worse comes to worse. I may just start doing that with all of them. But we have to wait and see. Let's just get right into this one, though. This chapter is called Tom Reports. Tom reports at camp, and this chapter starts on page 108 and ends on page 114. So I'm just going to get right into it. Let me just open up to page 108 because that would be nice. A few minutes later, Tom was in the shoal water of the bar, wading toward the Illinois shore. Before the depth reached his middle, he was halfway over. The current would permit no more wading now, so he stuck out confidently to swim the remaining 100 yards. He swam quadrant upstream, but still was swept downward fa- rather faster than he had expected. However, he reached the shore finally and drifted along till he found a low place and drew himself out. He put his hand on his jacket pocket, found his piece of bulk safe, and then stuck through the woods, following the shore with streaming garments. Shortly before 10 o'clock, he came into an open place opposite of the village and saw the ferry boat lying in the shadow of the trees in the high bank. Everything was quiet under the blinking stars. He crept down the bank, watching with all his eyes, slipped into the water, swam 3 or 4 strokes, climbed into the skiff that did yawl duty at the boat's stern. He laid himself down under the thwarts and waited panting. Presently the cracked bell tapped and a voice gave the order to cast off. A minute or two later the skiff's head was standing high up against the boat's swell, and the voyage was begun. Tom felt happy in the success, for he knew it was the boat's last trip for the night. At the end of a long 12 or 15 minutes, the wheels stopped and Tom slipped overboard and swam ashore in the dusk, landing 50 yards downstream out of danger of possible stragglers. He flew along unfrequented allies and shortly found himself at his aunt's back fence. He climbed over, approached the yell L, and looked in at the sitting room window, for a light was burning there. There sat Aunt Polly, Sid, Mary, and Joe Harper's mother, grouped together talking. They were by the bed, and the bed was between them and the door. Tom went to the door and began to softly lift the latch that he presently gently, and the door yielded a crack. He continued pushing cautiously and quaking every time it creaked, till he judged he might squeeze through on his knees, so he put his head through and began slowly. Why make the candles What makes the candles blow so? Said Aunt Polly. Tom hurried up. What That door's open. I believe why of course it is. No end of strange things now. Go on and shut it, Sid. Tom disappeared under the bed just in time. He lay and breathed himself for a time, and then creeped to where he could almost touch his aunt's foot. But I was, but as I was saying, said Aunt Polly, he weren't bad, so to say, only mischievous, only just giddy and Holmes you know. He weren't any more responsible than a coat. He never meant any harm, and he was the best-hearted boy that ever was. And she began to cry. It was just, it was just so with my Joe, always full of devilment and up to every kind of mischief, but he was just as unselfish and kind as he could be. And Jaws and laws bless me to think I went and weeped him for taking that cream, never once recollecting that I throwed it out myself because it was sour, and I never to see him again in the world. Never, never, never. Poor abused boy. And Mrs. Harper sobbed as if her heart would break. I hope Tom's better off where he is, said Sid, but if he'd been better in some ways. Sid, Tom felt the glare of the old lady's eye, though he could not see it. Not a word against my Tom now that he's gone. God'll take care of him. Never you trouble yourself, sir. Oh, Mrs. Harper, I don't know how to give him up. I don't know how to give him up. He was such a comfort to me, although he tormented my old heart out of me most. The Lord giveth, and the Lord have taken. Blessed he the name of the Lord, but it's so hard. Oh, it's so hard. Only last Saturday, my Joe busted a firecracker right under my nose, and I knocked him sprawling. Little did I know how soon. Oh, if it was to do over again, I'd hug him and bless him for it. Yes, yes, yes. I know just how you feel, Mrs. Harper. I know just exactly how you feel. No longer than yesterday noon, my Tom took and filled the cat full of painkiller, and I did think the creature would tear the house down. And God forgive me, I cracked Tom's head with my thimble. Thimble. I don't know how to say it, but say that word. Poor boy, poor dead boy. But he's out of all his troubles now, and the last word I ever heard him say was to reapproach. But this memory was too much for the old lady, and she broke ever entirely down. Tom was snuffling now himself, and more in pity of himself than anybody else. He could hear Mary crying and putting in a kind word for him from time to time. He began to have a nobler opinion of himself than ever before. Still, he was sufficiently touched by his aunt's grief too long to rush out from the under the bed and overwhelm her with joy. Before I go on to the next page, this is you probably can't see it, but this is the picture of that conversation all going down, and the theoretical gorgeousness of the thing appealed strongly to his nature too, but he resisted and lay still. He went on listening, and gathered by odds and ends that it was conjectured at first the boys had got drowned while taking a swim. Then the small raft had been missed. Next, certain boys said the missing lads had promised that the village should hear something soon. The wise heads had put this and that together and decided that the lads had gone off on the raft and would turn up at the next town below presently, but toward noon the raft had been found lodged against the Missouri shore, some 5 or 6 miles below the village, and then hope perished. They must be drowned, else hunger would have driven them home by nightfall, if not sooner. It was believed that the search for the bodies had been a fruitless effort merely because the drowning must have occurred in mid-channel since the boys, being good swimmers, would otherwise have escaped to shore. This was Wednesday night. If the bodies continued missing until Sunday, all hope would be given over and the funerals would be preached out that morning. Tom shuddered. Mrs. Harper gave a sobbing good night and turned to go. Then, with a mutual impulse, the two bereaved women flung themselves into each other's arms and had a good consoling cry and then parted. Aunt Polly was tender far beyond her wont in her good night to Sid and Mary. Sid snuffled a bit, and Mary went off crying with all her heart. Aunt Polly knelt down and prayed for Tom so touchingly, so appealingly, and with such measureless love in her words and her old trembling voice that she was weltering in tears again long before she was through. He had to keep still long enough after she went to bed, for she kept making broken-hearted ejaculations from time to time, tossing unrestfully and turning over. But at last she was still, only moaning a little in her sleep. Now the boy stole out, rose gradually by the bedside, shaded the candlelight with his hand, and stood regarding her. His heart was full of pity for her. He took out his sycamore scroll and placed it by the candle, but something occurred to him, and he lunged, considering his face lighted with the happy solution of his thought. He put the bulk hesitantly in his pocket. Then he bent over and kissed the faded lips and straightway made his stealthy exit, latching the door behind him. He threaded his way back to the ferry landing, found nobody at large there, and walked boldly on board the boat, for he knew she was taintless except that there was a watchman who always turned in and slept like a graven image. He untied the skiff and at the stern, slipped into it, and was soon rowing cautiously upstream. When he had pulled a mile above the village, he started quartering across and bent himself stoutly to his work. He hit the landing on the other side neatly, for this was a familiar bit of work to him. He was moved to capture the skiff, arguing that it might be considered a ship and therefore legitimate prey for a pirate, but he knew a thorough search would be made for it, and that um, might end in revelations. So he stepped ashore and entered the wood. He sat down and took a long rest, torturing himself meantime to keep awake, and then started slowly down the home stretch. The night was far spent. It was broad daylight before he found himself fairly abreast the island bow. He rested again until the sun was well up and gilded the great river with its splendor, and then he plunged into the stream. A little later he paused, dipping upon the threshold of the camp, and heard Joe say, "No, Tom, true blue Huck, and he'll come back. He won't desert. He knows that he would be a disgrace to a pirate, and Tom's too proud for that sort of thing. He's up to something or other. Now I wonder what. Um, with the thins. Well, the thins is ours anyways, ain't they? Pretty near, but not yet. Huck, the writin' says that if he ain't back here to breakfast, which he is," exclaimed Tom with fine dramatic effect, stepping gradually into camp. A sumptuous breakfast of bacon and fish was shortly provided, and the boys set to work upon it. Tom recounted and adorned his adventures. They were a vain and boastful company of heroes with this tale when the tale was done. Then Tom hid himself away in a shady nook to sleep till noon, and the other pirates got ready to fish and explore. And then that's the end of the chapter. Really good chapter. I really liked how they kind of showed the reactions to you know Tom's family and Joe Harper's family at home about his disappearance, and I guess you know Tom throughout the beginning of this book had always talked about how he wanted to see what his family's reaction would be if he wasn't there anymore, and I guess he got what he wanted. You couldn't really help but feel bad for them. And I think Tom definitely felt bad. I think he just, I guess it was just something he wanted to go back and just to see how they were reacting. And I did kind of like how they explained what they thought happened, how they took the laugh out and drowned, like what the actual story was. So, and I liked it. It kind of answered a lot of questions that we didn't have. So I liked that. Um, so yeah, overall, that's pretty much it. Um, that's pretty much the biggest thing that happened this chapter. I mean, it wasn't like I mean, it took up the whole chapter just about. Um, and I think Tom does feel a little bit guilty for deserted his family. Um, but I think he is living the life that he wanted to live. So I guess that's good. And I think if he had revealed that he was alive, I think he would not have. Yeah, it would not have been a good time for Tom. And I do like the chapter because it actually doesn't the name of it because it says um, Tom reports at camp, and obviously you would think it would be like his camp, like on the island where he is now, but no, you actually find out that it's his home. So yeah, I like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this Read Aloud series. Um, Please make sure to subscribe to this channel for more content. Make sure you click on the bell so that way every time you upload a video on this channel, you'll get the notification for it. And then make sure you subscribe to my CM Brothers YouTube channel and you click on the bell there as well. So that way every time I upload a video on that channel, you'll get the notification for it. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.